Welcome back. Thank you for staying with the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. A voluntary medical mission by the United States naval ship USNS Comfort has commenced and will run until the 2nd of October 2019. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs, is coordinating the mission. The ship is anchored just outside Port Castries, and 2 walk-in clinics have been set up at the Owen King EU Hospital and the National Cultural Center to provide general clinical services. All services are provided free of charge and are available for all who would need care. There is no pre-registration or appointment necessary for the clinics. People can simply walk in and request medical care. The services will be provided at the OKU Hospital and the National Cultural Center from the 25th of September to the 30th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, says general services to be provided include basic medical evaluation and treatment, preventative medicine, dental screenings and treatments, optometry screenings and provision of glasses, internal medicine, pediatrics, dermatology, women's health, physical therapy, and provision of medication as needed. She also updated on some new information.
Due to the size of the hospital ship and the depth of our harbor, we will not be able to accommodate the vessel at Point Seraphine, as was indicated earlier, but it will be berthed out at sea, and a smaller vessel from La Place Carénage, gate number 2, will transport patients to the ship. All surgical patients and patients requiring CT scans will need to be accompanied by an adult when coming for surgery. That is, the person would need to come with the patient when they're doing the procedure and also remain with them on the ship during the provision of care and also during the admission on the ship. All patients who are confirmed for surgery are required to attend a pre-screening with the team from the USNS, the clinical team, on Tuesday, September 24th at 8 a.m. at the OKEU Hospital. These clients will be contacted and are already being contacted by the Ministry of Health. We also want to indicate that all other clients who would like to access surgical care on the ship who have not yet sent in a referral to our office, there is still an opportunity where you can come into one of the clinics at either the OKEU or the National Cultural Center to be seen and reviewed by the team, and then you can be scheduled for surgery. So persons who have not yet sent in a referral or would like to get surgical services, you can be seen by the team at one of the 2 clinics from the 25th to the 30th of September, and then a decision can be made with you as to the way forward. Arrangements have been made with the President of the National Council of Public Transportation to provide shuttle service to the OKEU Hospital via the Cicero and the Bexar buses, and to the National Cultural Center via the Leclerc buses during the mission.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness says it is pleased that St. Lucia was chosen to participate in this humanitarian mission and encourages all to make full use of this opportunity for free medical care. The tour operator and airline Thomas Cook said on Monday that it had collapsed, forcing hundreds of thousands of UK travelers to scramble to find a way home after last-minute negotiations to obtain necessary financing for the debt-ridden company fell apart. The liquidation of the world's oldest travel company, which specialized in low-cost package vacations that included flights and accommodation in more than 60 destinations around the world, has set in motion what is being described as the biggest peacetime repatriation in British history, as the government announced plans to bring back 150,000 Britons. Thomas Cook was struggling with debts approaching $2 billion. Before the collapse, Prime Minister, that's the UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said the government would not intervene to save the airline, adding that doing so would create a moral hazard because the possibility of a government bailout could encourage other companies to take risks. The BBC reported that the government had chartered 45 jets to get people home from as far away as Malaysia. In other news, a stalwart in the credit union movement has passed in the person of Hayden William. The secretary of the board of directors of the St. Lucia Cooperative Credit Union League, McCorville Combi, says in the late 40s, when a group of Jamaicans came to St. Lucia to sell the idea of setting up credit unions, it was people like Hayden William who worked to get the credit union movement up and going in St. Lucia.
For persons in the cooperative movement, whether it's credit union, fisher farm cooperatives or agricultural cooperatives, Mr. Hayden Williams is a name synonymous with the movement. He was a founding member of the movement, and more importantly than just being a founding member, up to the very end he remained a guiding light to the movement. He remained readily accessible to anyone who wanted to hear of the history or wanted to tweak and take from his knowledge for the benefit of the movement.
In the late 70s, William worked alongside other credit union founders to help formulate the legal structure for credit unions through the setting up of the credit union bylaws. He later became the first manager of the Credit Union League.
We are eternally grateful for the work which Mr. Williams has done. And therefore, when we acquired this building and we had the opening ceremony, it was a great joy for us to have Mr. Williams open that, because it was symbolic of we had finally, in a sense, found a home which we saw as permanent, and it was fitting that a person who had carried the league and been so involved with the league and had moved from home to home, in a sense, was there to see it find a permanent place, because the league started off using space sometimes in the Paris Center. There was a time whereby the Eudoxie building up Bridge Street. The league has moved from place to place, but until it had found its final home here. So it was a proud moment for us, and it was a way of also acknowledging the contribution which he had made.
The general manager of the Police Force and Allied Services Credit Union, B.S. Charlemagne, also reflected on the contribution of William to the development of the credit union movement in St. Lucia and the passion with which he served.
Mr. Hayden William, I have known for the past 15 years. From my interaction with him, he has gotten to be somebody that you could described as the protector of the credit union movement. He was one of the founding fathers of the movement, and he never, even if the time came when he had to make a departure from the movement, but he still had a vested interest. Every conversation he held, he would have to feature the well-being of the credit union movement. I remember he would always come in at the Credit Union League just to find out how well the movement is doing, how much commitment there is within the movement. You want to inquire how much youth participation is taking place in the movement. And I know he was very, very passionate, extremely passionate to the pending changes about the movement, whether the movement was about to become very heavily regulated, and the possibility of some of the fundamental principles of the movement being eroded. He guarded that with his life.
Charlemagne says William was passionate about the advancement of people, an ideal held dear by the credit union movement. William passed away on Thursday, the 19th of September 2019. He was 88 years old. He is survived by his 9 children, including, in full disclosure, his son, Iram Hamilton, a long-standing member of the media fraternity, now employed with Hot 7 TV as a cameraman. We extend our sincere condolences to the entire family. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet is this week leading a St. Lucia delegation to the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, where climate change and small island developing states will be among the key issues. Prime Minister Chastanet, also the current CARICOM chairman, addressed the historic Climate Change Summit, an initiative of the UN Secretary General, on Monday, the 23rd of September. It is anticipated that the UN summit will deliver new pathways and practical actions to shift global response into higher gear. Speaking of the summit, the United Nations Secretary General stated, quote, "Science tells us that on our current path, we face at least 3 degrees Celsius of global heating by the end of the century. The climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it is a race we can win. This is not a climate talk summit. We have had enough talk. This is not a climate negotiation summit. You don't negotiate with nature. This is a climate action summit," end quote. Natural justice is being advocated for by the National Workers Union, the bargaining agent for SLASFA employees. The union says, as per protocol, the right to due process before disciplinary action is taken should be allotted to employees. However, a recent termination carried out by SLASFA has left NWU reps crying foul.
A decision taken by the management of the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, SLASPA, is not sitting well with the National Workers Union, NWU, the bargaining agent for SLASPA employees. The decision? To terminate the services of an employee without formal disciplinary hearing as prescribed by the Labor Act of 2006. Deputy President General NWU Solis Myers says every employee deserves the right to due process before decisive action is taken.
The employee did not have due process. He was not afforded the right to representation, and he was not given the right to be heard. That, at least for us, is a serious breach, not only in terms of the law, but also in terms of the grievance procedures that we have set out in our collective agreement with the company. So what we're asking for is for the company to do it correctly and make sure that they follow exactly what is set out in law and be guided by what both parties have signed on to in terms of the collective agreement.
Myers says the next move on the part of the employee is simply to abide by the process of natural justice.
Honestly speaking, the feedback is they need to do what is correct. The employee has to have access to due process. They must be given their right to be heard, and the company must abide by what is set out in law. We have certain principles and practices and laws that guide industrial relations, and all parties involved, in order to maintain that kind of industrial balance, should adhere and abide by what is set out.
A press release sent out by the union on the matter reads, quote, "The NWU is of the opinion that the authority is continuing to pile up so many industrial blunders which the workers will not continue to tolerate or accept," end quote. The National Workers Union stands in solidarity with the employee and requests that said employee is recalled and afforded the due process of natural justice. If the management of SLASPA refuses, the authority will be held responsible for the consequences. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
The St. Lucia Fire Service was on its toes over the weekend, responding to 68 ambulance calls, one of which was a shooting and 2 being motor vehicular accidents.
60 of the 68 ambulance calls responded to by the St. Lucia Fire Service were said to be that of medical emergencies. Divisional Officer SLFS David Antoine says the singular shooting incident responded to by the SLFS on Friday 20th September took place in the community of Tilarishus Dennery.
At approximately 10:27 p.m., fire officers from the Dennery Fire Station responded to a shooting incident at Tilarishus Dennery. On arrival at the scene, emergency personnel assessed and treated a young male for multiple bullet wounds about the body. He was subsequently transported to the Dennery Polyclinic, where he was later pronounced dead by a medical practitioner.
Meanwhile, first priority, Antoine says, is ensuring the safety of emergency personnel. He outlines the process governing response to violent scenes.
When we have incidents like that involve shooting or chopping, before we could actually make a response from whichever of the station, there is an established protocol where the police would make a response first to secure the scene. Because in the past we've had fire officers being attacked by the assailants. And to avoid all of that, we have taken precautionary measures to protect our fire officers so that these things do not happen. So when such calls are received in our control room, it would take us some time before we could get to the scene or even make a response. Because we look to to the security of our fire personnel responding before we can actually do so.
Furthermore, a motor vehicular accident along the Vieux-Fort Labrie Highway was also responded to by the SLFS. That incident involved a collision between a Honda SUV and a motorcycle. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
Thank you, Solange. Stay with us. There's more news coming up after the break.